Hey guys, Mrs. Sikoski here. This is your Catcher in the Rye halfway point video. We're going to do some analysis. This is kind of the end of summer for me, and I'm just going into full-blown enjoying the relaxation of this time of year. So with that, I encourage you, I know I have to go back to a physical building soon. I'm thinking that some of you get to be home to work still, and I might end up being jealous of you, because you'll be able to, be all cozy in your, I'm doing it, your pajamas and your slippers with your glasses on, if you wear those, and just whatever makes you feel like you can just relax while learning without falling asleep. So for this Be Now, for this, halfway point of Catcher in the Rye, get yourself super comfortable. Pause the video, get yourself like a nice drink, prop up some pillows. I don't know, are you into like lighting candles and doing, having some background music, just some kind of soothing, cool environment in your home space, because, there's going to be a point in time where we're going to miss being able to do that. So this is an honor of being able to create some really comfortable, cool home space to do your learning from. So please, for your Be Now, take a moment to set yourself up in the comforts of your own space. And then we're going to talk about Catcher in the Rye. And this is, we're at the end of chapter 14, and this is our halfway point. So again, I mentioned if I did have a physical copy of the book, which I don't, working remotely, I just have the PDF, but I could take a piece of paper and I could put it in the middle of Catcher in the Rye, and it would be at the end of chapter 14. So this last page, chapter 14, where Holden's in the bathtub contemplating killing himself, is our halfway point of the novel. And I want to just take this whole video to talk about the plot cycle and the importance that Salinger gives to placing his main character in what I'm going to call his rock bottom, his very lowest moment so far in this story. So we have Holden Caulfield, our main character, telling us through the stream of consciousness, first person narration, about his really long day. So he's had this really long day, and it ended with him in a bathtub, which is symbolic, considering killing himself. So we know it hasn't been going well for him. He's in a bad place emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, if that's your thing, or not. You don't have to add that in. But he's just altogether not regulated, right? So he's dysregulated. He needs some help. He could use some therapy or some kind-hearted people that could offer him advice about what to do with himself when he's feeling like this, because he just doesn't know what to do. He doesn't have the skills or the tools to figure out how to make himself, move forward from this, what is a really troubling time for him as a person. So he just keeps sinking into some vices of his and trying to distract himself, right? So he's using this power of distraction. He's going out, he's partying, he's smoking cigarettes, right? He's drinking. So all tools of distraction, so he doesn't have to really deal with his issues. And then now he's finally, it's evolving into conflicts. So he's had conflicts with Stradlater. He's unhappy. So even if he puts himself in a position where he thinks he can maybe have fun, like going to Greenwich Village to this club called Ernie's and listening to some jazz music in a party scene, he's still unable to have fun and connect with anyone. So there's just something seriously going on with him, and what he needs to do is take time to pause and get some help and reflect and learn some tools to cope, really. He needs some coping mechanisms, which he's missing. So we'll talk more about coping mechanisms and maybe places in other videos where you can look to discover, in our modern time, there's a lot more available that Holden could have used as a way to reach out for help. But he doesn't have that, or he's not seeking it. And he's really gotten to this point that I'm going to call rock bottom. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. For the plot cycle, we're going to get into how Salinger so craftily, and I love it, and I feel like he would love that we're having this conversation, he so craftily places Holden in a bathtub. So bathtub, the water, right? The power to cleanse. So he's in a bathtub, and this is not the last time that we'll see Holden or Salinger using water to sort of cleanse away some of the emotions that Holden's having. And in and of itself, a bath, I don't know if that's your thing, a bath is, it's a nice way for people to unwind, right? And to relax. So this might be like a therapeutic approach that can help Holden to like soothe his emotions a little bit. So he's using this bath as, you know, almost a symbol of where Holden is at this point in the story, which is rock bottom. So the water is going to be this way that Holden can kind of cleanse himself and remove, you know, figuratively and literally everything that's gone on for him in this day that's been crazy. So he takes a bath and he gets out of the bath. He doesn't kill himself. And we'll see where he ends up being in chapter 15. I don't want to spoil that, but he doesn't kill himself. And I do want to focus on plot for a second. So let me start my screen share. With the plot, Salinger, for those of you that are writers or just really enjoy reading, you know that there are different plot structures. So there's, you know, some traditional plot structures. There's plot structures where like there's more of an in media res, which is starting in the middle of something. Excuse the giant plane flying by. So there's not just one way to approach writing and creating a narrative, but Salinger does use sort of this traditional plot, and he uses Holden and puts him in what's called the hero cycle, though Holden is not your traditional hero. So we're going to talk about that. And first I want to share with you a TED Talk about our traditional hero. So a hero is a character, and this video I'll go over it. This is a great video. That is a protagonist in literature that up until the 20th century was kind of larger than life. And the video will speak more to it, but you've probably become familiar with it in a lot of the stories that you've read. They'll mention some, and I know as ninth graders, you read the Odyssey with Odysseus. So that is a very like typical hero, and you've probably learned about this hero cycle. It's also called the monomyth. So we'll get into that because it's important. Though Holden isn't your typical hero, the plot cycle that Salinger is using, we'll talk about what type of hero Holden is after this video. The plot cycle that Salinger is using fits the cycle of what we would see in a typical hero monomyth, okay?
What do Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo all have in common with the heroes of ancient myths? What if I told you they are all variants of the same hero? Do you believe that? Joseph Campbell did. He studied myths from all over the world and published a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, retelling dozens of stories and explaining how each represents the monomyth, or hero's journey. So, what is the hero's journey? Think of it as a cycle. The journey begins and ends in the hero's ordinary world, but the quest passes through an unfamiliar, special. Along the way, there are some key events. Think about your favorite book or movie. Does it follow this pattern? Status quo. That's where we start. Unplanned. Call to adventure. The hero receives a mysterious message. Invitation? Challenge? To attack. Assistance. The hero needs to be not waiting for someone to approach. The hero classes the threshold. His power, self-power, enters the special moment of invitation. The hero can't say much. Protect. Friends. He and the hero is hard work. The hero sees a winner. Sees a master. Sees a master. Uncommon. Approach. Time to face the biggest ordeal. Hero's first fall. This is finished. Trust. This is the hero's darkest hour. He faces death. Kissing the hero's eyes. Only to be nearby. Suspect. It's too involved between students. Do you masters this test has changed the law. Is that good? Is that bad? Resolution. Untitled Chapter is started. Chapter slash quote. Not needed to more. The thing is quite the same as you. Many people are books and movies. Following this vision fail. Pretty close. But let's see how the human names fits the whole story. What is Salinger? Just the story. It was just his name was craftily. And my assistant. What about departure? Does she move her body on her? She must have a train to the top. So you have to not do it.
Hey, so that is a nice little hero cycle talk. If for some reason you were unable to hear it well through the Zoom record, I'm going to put the video in the YouTube description. Interesting, but not what we're doing. All right. So excuse that. But yeah, if these little videos through the Zoom record are hard to hear, just go to the link in the YouTube description and watch it in a separate window. And then you can, just fast forward the part of this lesson that included the video. I know that came up in a previous lesson. So again, please do what works best for you and don't feel like you have to commit to hearing something, through the Zoom lesson that you could hear better in another window. So please use those links to your benefit and advantage. But so what that video was talking about was this hero cycle that is a very traditional plot, and this man named Joseph Campbell kind of coined the term monomyth, which is like a single myth story that you can go back and trace, millennial stories that use this particular plot cycle for telling about hero protagonists. So and they list so many examples of it still being used currently. Just a very typical way to tell a story about a hero. And Holden is not a typical hero. He's what we call an anti-hero. So before we get into what's the difference between a hero and an anti-hero, and then there's also tragic heroes, they die. So there's different types of heroes, but what we just watched is your typical hero cycle. So I'm going to go back into the share and we're going to look at this for a second. This is video. I just want to get to. So I'm sorry. Our imperfect world. I think, we all just get used to accepting good enough right now. We'll get better. And you know what, maybe it might just be easier. I'm gonna go to my diet. Oh, we're not ready. All right. So here's just a nice diagram of the hero cycle, the hero's journey. And just fun fact, if you just Google hero cycle and you look for an image, you get a bunch of bikes. But bicycles, apparently there's a type of bicycle called a hero cycle. This is your hero's journey cycle. So it's a circular plot, meaning the protagonist is going to start in one place, go through all of their adventures, and then return to the place that they started. And you know that with Odysseus, right? I know everybody's read that. So I'm going to use him as our example. Odysseus starts in Ithaca. He gets called to war. He goes through war, right? That's a whole separate story. Then he leaves the war, and then he has to like travel the seas, right? Have his Odyssey. And then finally, he returns to Ithaca like 20 years later. So with that said, there is always this return, though usually after some great grand adventuring. And there's also what we call 6 o'clock. So you think of this as a clock. So the hero is at 12 o'clock. And then this would be like 3 o'clock, right? And then this is 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and finally we return to 12. So with that said, we get a call to adventure. And if you think of Holden, he gets a call to adventure, right? He gets a call to adventure because we know he's got to leave Pensy. So he leaves his world that's comfortable. He crosses a threshold, which is him going to New York City, right? He leaves Pensy, this world that's kind of been laid out for him. And then he gets into New York City, and therein begins these challenges of this adventure that he's on. So he's still there, right? So he's going through all of the different challenges that he's had so far. He's tried to get some help. It hasn't necessarily worked yet, but he does reach out. He reaches out to Mr. Spencer. He was even asking the cab drivers for help. So he's not someone who hasn't tried to talk to anyone, but it's just not, anything that's reaching him as of yet. And then now we're at what I call 6 o'clock, which is perfect that Salinger has it placed in the very middle of the story. Doesn't always work out that perfectly, but I applaud Salinger. And if he's listening somewhere out there in the ether, I hope he hears me applauding him that he was so able to create Holden's abyss, 6 o'clock, at the exact center of his novel. Like, so much kudos to him as a writer that he was so successful at structuring that. So with that, Holden's at his abyss, right? And this is either a scene of actual death and rebirth, or, some like almost death, close to death experience. And that's what Holden has. He is in a bathtub thinking about killing himself, right? And then at that point, he's going to have a revelation, all right? A revelation that allows some sort of rebirth. And this is why I love the beauty of the bathtub and the water. The water is this cleansing, and it's like this renewal, right? And so then Holden leaves the bath, what's going to go into this transformation stage for him after, first cleansing himself of the first set of challenges and temptations from his, adventure so far. And so now he's at his death rebirth scene, and he is going to start, though he's an anti-hero, so it won't be that glamorous. He's going to start to get toward what we'll call a transformation, and then finally an atonement and a return to, some sort of beginning. So that's what we have to look forward to. I'll kind of say that loosely because he is an anti-hero, but this, knowing that he sort of found a place of rock bottom at the end of chapter 14. All right, so with that said, we're going to go into what is an anti-hero. So this is the plot cycle that we're following, the journey of a hero, but he is an anti-hero as a character. So he's not that traditional hero. So what's an anti-hero? And again, this is a TED Talk. I'll put the link in the description for the video. If for some reason the sound isn't working for you with the Zoom, you know, just pause this video, open the link, watch it in a new window, and then come back for the lesson. And you can just fast forward through the TED Talk here with the anti-hero. So with that, here is our anti-hero.
Literary critic Northrop Frye once observed that in our primitive days, often the writers who most write, well, even the gods. And as civilization advanced, they came down the cusp of the gods, so to speak. And became contrary to the sun,
All right, I love that video. Everything about what they share is something that I think is really poignant. So let's stop the share. Hey, so here I am.
Deep inside Yale University's privately rare book and manuscript library.
No, thank you. So just want to have a conversation about that. And I hope that I get some feedback and we can have a conversation together. So Holden is this anti-hero that TED Talk just so beautifully describes. And it's like, you know, the anti-hero shares a lot of the same ideas of a hero. They want to go against the establishment and they want to, like, you know, rebel against authority, and they're inspiring in their idea that they know that the, you know, authoritative conforming way of the masses isn't what's right for them or for everyone. And that's Holden, right? But then as an anti-hero, he has all of these stumbling blocks, and it's not stumbling blocks that the traditional heroes face, which are external forces, though he does have external forces working against him, but they're brought on by those internal stumbling blocks. There are things going on within Holden that he needs to, like, deal with and heal and acknowledge. And until Holden can do that, until Holden can go inward and deal with the, as they say, the demons that are inside, all right, he is going to be this anti-hero. He's, you know, maybe has like these glimpses that we feel hopeful that he's going to become that hero we want him to become. We're like, yes, we want him to be this, you know, revolutionary figure that goes against the society and finds another path and encourages other people to join him. We want that for Holden, right? Or at least I want that for Holden. But, you know, he has these things that he needs to work on, and they're internal. They're all inside of him. So until he's able to go do some of that work on himself, and deal with this crisis mode that he's in, he's just going to keep stumbling and stumbling and stumbling. And that's why a lot of people get frustrated with anti-heroes. They want a hero, right? We're conditioned in our heads by society. Think about Disney. Sorry, Disney. But yeah, I'm pointing at you. Like this world that we can, you know, have these champions all the time who always find success and who we can just cheer for and pound our chests about. Holden's not that. And I love that about the 20th century. The 20th century got real, and there were so many authors and there were movements that said, hey, we're human. We're not godlike. And let's give our protagonists human characteristics, because all of us have these things going on inside of us that we have struggles about, we need to overcome, and we need to acknowledge. And until we do that, you know, we are going to all be those anti-heroes. And we want to be heroes, right? We all want to have the piece of the hero pie. But again, I'm going to leave you with this thought. Until we until characters like Holden can go inside and overcome their own personal demons, they're going to have a really hard time doing that. All right. So with that, be well, and I'll see you for chapter 15. Okay.